Hello and welcome to Your Ghana, My Ghana. We're on Graphic Online TV and my name is Dede Amano Brooks. Today we're looking at what the latest opinion poll tells us about the government's performance. What factors will influence voting decisions come December, according to the poll? Will it be the cost of living, the way we're governed, free SHS, or LGBTQ? Joining me today in the studio are Musake Dankwa, the Executive Director and Head of Polling of Global Info Analytics, and also joining me is Honourable Dr. Rashid Pelpu, who is the NDC Member of Parliament for West Central. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Also joining us by Zoom is Richard Ahyagba, the Communications Director of the NPP. Thank you, Mr. Ahyagba, for being with us today.
Thank you kindly.
But before we begin our conversation, let's take a quick look at the issues and the trends. With Election Day just 9 months away, interest is starting to bubble up about what will be the drivers of the December 2024 polling decisions. For the past 23 years, Ghanaians have consistently changed governments every 8 years. The question this year is, if really it is possible to buck against this trend, what will drive the change in voting patterns? It is possible is the campaign slogan of the ruling party's presidential candidate. But polling data on governance and performance gathered by Global Info Analytics provide a fascinating view of what is currently on the minds of voters. Global Info Analytics is a Ghanaian research company founded by Musake Dankwa in 2019. Dankwa is the Executive Director and Head of Polling Analysis of the company. Conducted over the last 2 weeks of March 2024, the latest poll sought voters' perceptions about government performance in areas such as standard of living, regional level perspectives, corruption in Ghana, confidence in the Ghana Police Service and in the Electoral Commission, free senior high school and LGBTQ. According to the data, 65% of voters believe Ghana is moving in the wrong direction. The gloomiest views are held in the Western, Volta and Greater Accra regions, where 86%, 82% and 79% of voters respectively believe the country is taking the wrong direction. Some of the divergence in opinion is quite predictable. For example, while 60% of New Patriotic Party voters believe Ghana is headed in the right direction, only 7% of National Democratic Congress voters do. When it comes to rating the president's job performance, 62% disapprove of his performance, while 32% are happy with it. A majority of voters disapprove of the president's performance in all regions except the Bono East and Eastern regions. While 52% of voters believe the government has performed very poorly or poorly according to the poll, only 6% said it has performed excellently. When asked about their standard of living over the past 12 months, 51% of voters said it had worsened. These figures were compiled before the first April fuel price increase, which is likely to affect perceptions negatively. A majority of voters, 52%, believe corruption under the NPP government has increased. But when it comes to managing election security and the elections, the tracking poll shows voter confidence in the Ghana Police Service and the Electoral Commission soaring for a second time since October 2023. While 64% of voters have confidence in the police service, contrasting with low numbers in the past, 59% of voters have confidence in the electoral body. On the free SHS policy, the poll suggests that 67% of voters benefit directly from the policy. Although 61% said the policy had brought them financial relief, 67% of voters said the policy should be reviewed to address challenges. On the controversial LGBTQ+ bill, which was passed by Parliament at the end of February, the poll shows that while 59% of voters support its approval, 30% do not support the bill, and 9% do not have any opinion on the bill. A majority of 50% of voters said the president's refusal to sign the bill would not influence their vote in the December elections, while 37% said it would. In terms of party affiliation, 58% of NPP voters polled said the president's failure to assent to the bill would have no influence on their vote, compared to 50% of NDC voters. Interestingly, in the Upper West region, a striking 72% of voters are against the bill, followed by 48% in Ashanti, 47% in North East, and 45% in Ahafo. The numbers show that Ghanaians are far less unanimous than their MPs in their approval of the controversial bill, which dishes out prison sentences of up to 10 years for LGBTQ people and their allies. Moreover, the numbers supporting the bill are likely to taper off as we draw closer to the elections and cost of living issues come to the front of voters' minds. According to the Global Info Analytics Executive Director, bread and butter issues will dominate the elections, while LGBTQ might resonate among just a few people. And with huge numbers already saying they will not vote, according to Musa Dankwa, LGBTQ is unlikely to be a decider in this year's election. Over the years, we've established with the data that when a party has done its 8 years, the election to break the 8 years has a lower turnout than the previous election, Dankwa told the graphics Your Ghana, My Ghana. The last election had a 79% turnout, and we expect to see a 70% turnout this year, Dankwa said. We're doing the questions now. The first is Musa Dankwa. What would you say are the top line messages coming out of your survey results?
The top line items for me, it is the direction of the country, the perception by voters of where they believe the country is headed. At the moment, about 65% of them believe that Ghana is headed in the wrong direction. That's quite high. And also about voters who said that their standard of living has gotten worse in the last 12 months, around 51%. So those are the top liners for me in this poll.
Thank you. Richard Anyagba, as the NPP spokesman, what do you think about these results? Are they convincing?
Well, thank you very much, and good morning to my friends in the studio and yourself. Yes, I have a problem with the poll itself. So, but then the general concern of people expressing satisfaction, dissatisfaction is a reality with government in power, be it NPP or NDC. So those sentiments will always be recorded. But the measurement that we are dealing with, for me, I don't have confidence in. And so I don't think that it reflects reality. It is something that, for me, I should be taken at face value, but not a representative feeling of the people, as my brother Musa Dankwa wants Ghanaians to believe, because of the research itself. I don't think that it gives us a clear picture of people's views presently in the country. And the reason yes.
Oh, continue.
No, so I say that because if you just saw the report that just came out from another institution, which is external, they were measuring the direction of the country themselves in their 2024 release of the index. I'm talking about the recent report that was given and published about the World Economic Governance Index for 2024, ranks Ghana as the best governed country in West Africa and 5th in Africa. Now, that measurement there is reflective of the direction of the country. And that poll indicates that Ghana is moving in the right direction, generally. So if you contrast that with what Global Info Analytics finds, you realize that there is some serious discrepancy there. And that, for me, tied in with my understanding of their methodology, I think leads me to the conclusion that this poll cannot be taken seriously. Now, once we go further in the discussion, I can point a few things to do with my understanding of the validity and the reliability of the poll, which is the basis, among other things, for my saying that the data cannot be trusted.
But Mr. Anyagba, looking at it from another perspective, if Mr. Dankwa's results are confirming a trend that we've all observed over the last years of 8 years in and 8 years out, what would you say the MPP has done that is so sufficiently exciting as to make people abandon this pattern and break the 8?
Well, generally speaking, the difficulty for governments in 8 years in being in power is a thing that we've observed over, say, about 4 or 5 election cycles, or more or less over a period of 16 years, with the MPP being in government following the NDC in 8 years, and Ghanaians deciding that after 8 years, the NDC was supposed to go, and then they voted for an MPP government. And then MPP government, 8 years went, and then NDC came. But you see, the key thing that we have always not analyzed is the margin of victory and defeat on that 8-year margin. And a key one for me is the 2008 election, which did not tell you that Ghanaians necessarily want 8 years in, 8 years out. If you saw the first round, President Akufo-Addo actually led. He needed just less than 1-point-something% to be able to have cleared victory first round. But then, in the second round, conditions to do with majority in parliament and other things led the NDC to win by a hair, not by a convincing margin, just by a hair. So it tells you that this 8 years in, 8 years out, we don't have sufficient time data to reach a conclusive, conclusion that indeed Ghanaians would vote for a party that has been in government 8 years to go out. Now, the general sentiment that you're saying, it's normal to say that because the government or the party is in government and is in the arena, people visit their frustration on that government. So if you take those, displeasure that is expressed across board to say that is indicative of the party, likely to be voted out of government, you would have misread the data, or you would have misread the situation, because these complaints we're hearing today were very much alive in 2008 when President Akufo-Addo almost won first round in that election. So what I believe is that government continuously working on the concerns of the people, and I think this government is doing that. The record of our performance from 2017 till now is manifest, and it demonstrates that the government has performed. The challenges we have faced are clear. What I think we are doing now is to be a bit more aggressive in documenting for people, or for Ghanaians, what we have done to be able to merit another 4-year term in government. And you would remember recently the SONA president talked about the launch of the performance tracker that is happening on Wednesday. It will detail for Ghanaians everything we have done to this point. And that will be the basis, I believe, Ghanaians would use to vote for us for another 4-year term. So the displeasure, which I think that it cannot be taken away, that some people have concerns, people have raised concerns, but that is only because you are a party in government. And when people are frustrated, they blame government, but it's not a sufficient basis. And my key point with Musa and his measurement is that, you see, scientific research is supposed to confirm what you think is out there. And that's why, as researcher, you do everything to rule out possibilities of people discrediting your research. But right now, what we have is this global info-analytic effort that they've been doing. It is only an effort to just print out there what they think people's sentiments are. They are not actually truly measuring to give us a scientific basis to sustain the claim that truly people are unhappy. You hear the rumors. You yourself, you've heard. I have heard. I'm in Ashanti region now. I've talked to people. People have concerns, but it is not sufficient, okay, in terms of, or it's not widespread in the manner Busa Danqua's data is capturing. And I use the data from the World Governance Index that has been released, also measuring the direction of the country, telling you that Ghana is ranked first in West Africa and fifth in Africa. That tells you that the measurement has a problem with respect to global info analytics. And I choose to believe the other rather than Musa's data.
Okay, well, before we come to the issue of methodology, Honorable Dr. Rashid Helpur, what are your thoughts on these results? Which of the results jump out to you?
Well, thank you very much. When I had a look at the results, I just confirmed that this is a firm confirmation of the general feelings in the country, and that this results we have seen is strategic enough for anybody which is points to negatively or positively to begin to assess itself and to begin to take advantage of the knowledge that is found in the results and begin to work. But I even will ask Mr. Richard I have got to apologize immediately to the organization that has painstakingly went through the country to bring out these results, for saying that they just do what other people, what people feel, and they just put down something together without doing enough. It's wrong for them to look at an intellectual academic organization committing itself to do this work with their own resources without aiming at gaining anything from either one of us. For him to make this remark is unacceptable. But as I'm saying, it is confirming the feeling, the pulse in the hearts of people, the pain we are going through, the general feeling of, an economic downturn that we all are observing, the rise in fuel prices, nobody can doubt that, the fall in our city, nobody can doubt that, the failing of businesses all over the country, the challenge of corruption, allegations going on, and everything that brings and contract an economy are beginning to show, which is manifest in the fact that we have to even go to the IMF to own up to say, look, you need to come and help us. And for anybody to say this is the best managed economy in Africa, it's like they are mocking Ghanaians. They are insulting the conscience of Ghanaians. They are attacking our integrity, our feeling, and the pain everybody's going through. For this government to mess up to this point, and for an agent of the government to come out to say, we are happy, this is the best run government, as if he's singing a song, telling a story that he's manufacturing. This is not the situation in this country. This country is going through a lot of pain. This country needs to be reorganized and remanaged. The managers of this country are failing. Statistics are showing that things are going bad and that we need to reassess ourselves with a small space left, to address the issues of unemployment, which is one of the worst in Africa, in West Africa. In fact, Ghana's unemployment is the worst in West Africa. Ghana's debt is the worst in West Africa. Ghana's GDP has run down. We were above Cote d'Ivoire, now it is going down. Our fallen CD is the worst performing currency in West Africa. The managers of I'm actually sympathize with Richard because he speaks well, he fights for his government, but he's fighting a battle that he can't win. And underneath all these things, he's talking about another term, breaking the aid, which is very annoying when you hear all that. So we'll advise government to take the statistics serious. They may not be able to win the elections, but they would be able to address some of the key issues that are, are crippling the economy and killing Ghanaians on a daily basis. People are finding it difficult to feed themselves. People are finding it difficult to report at work because they spend all their money on transportation. They can't pay accommodation. Things have gone terribly bad. And that acknowledgement has to be very manifest in the voice of government. Galamsey is destroying all our lands. I mean, things are bad. And without even seeing the results, you can tell the story. So if statistics are showing that everything we are going through is now captured in figures, we can only applaud it and encourage such organizations to even do more. So at every point in time, we don't speak in vacuum, but we can speak with real, concrete statistics.
Well, indeed, and Mr. Dankwa, your company does have a reputation for rigorous research. And I think there's one quite controversial question included in your survey that we can use to look at this issue of methodology a bit deeper. Let's dig a bit further. Now, as it happens, a statistic originating in Upper West, which says that 72% of the people in Upper West are against the LGBTQ bill. Is that any possible? This is where we can interrogate the methodology that Richard Ahyagba is questioning. Is there any possibility that for 72% of people in Upper West to be out of step with our members of parliament, could it mean that people misinterpreted the question you put to them? Did they think they were voting, that they were saying that 72% of people were in favor of the bill rather than against? Please speak to your methodology on that.
No, it was a very simple question. And sometimes when the numbers come out like this, they may look a bit odd. But you see, people saying things in public doesn't always mean that's what they actually mean in private. When we are talking to voters, one-on-one engagement with the voter, so he is confident to tell you his view. Mm-hmm. But if there are people around, sometimes they tend to blend in. They want to feel like, okay, they are part of the majority, mm-hmm. but they may not tell you the truth. This sample was taken from 3 constituencies in the Upper West region. And maybe if we drill down those constituencies, we may know why it may be like that. So I'm not surprised, but also we must also remember that there's always an outlier in every survey. Right. People whose view will be completely different from the norm. It's not unusual in statistics. So it's quite, but what we also say is that when you are analyzing a regional result from a survey that was purposely designed for national, mm-hmm. the margin of error, when you try to zoom down into the micro level, tends to be higher. Mm-hmm. Because you didn't have to be enough sample in that region to really generalize the regional outlook. Because the survey was not intended for regional outlook, but a national outlook that had a peep into the region.
Mm-hmm. But even if Upper West is an outlier with 72%, it was quite interesting to see that in quite a few other regions, more than 50% of people said that even if the president does not assent to this bill, that wouldn't change their vote.
No, it's because probably there are more important issues for them mm-hmm. to use to vote than the LGBT.
And what are those more important issues?
Definitely it's going to be the economy, because the top 3 issues people are worried about is 1, job, mm-hmm. 2, the economy, 3, education, 4, roads. Mm-hmm. So these are the things that are bothering voters that they will use to vote eventually. But there are those who the LGBTQ issue will become a peripheral issue that they may consider at a certain point in time, but that will not drive their vote actually. No.
You think it will fall away as we come closer to the election?
It will not be a big issue. See, when you have economy in crisis, when you have jobs, those LGBT will not really reach the reason why people are going to.
They can't compete with those issues.
No.
Honorable Dr. Pelpour, isn't it unusual in a democracy such as Ghana is touted to be for 100% of MPs to vote all the same way? Is that unusual?
It's not unusual. Normally, if you look at our relation, the minority relation with the majority, often we vote 100%. It's only when it comes to very critical issues, touching directly on the economy in a negative way, hurting the people that we come out to vote against them. Otherwise, in many instances, they bring bills and agreements, and we often will vote 100%. But in the case of this LGBT matter, I suspect that nobody wanted to come out to say it was against it. The speaker gave...
In Parliament, nobody wanted to come out and say...
Yeah, the speaker gave opportunity.
I'm against 10-year prison sentence.
Yeah, no, at least in that one, somebody got up to say he was against the 10-year sentence, not just 10-year sentence, but the fact that it should be criminalized and people are in prison for practicing LGBT.
For up to 3 years.
Yeah. So, it came up strongly, but overwhelmingly he was defeated. So I think also that when the speaker gave the opportunity and said, "Look, anybody who is against it, can you show up?" Nobody showed up because it has become a sensitive issue. If I speak in any form that should support LGBT from West Central, I'm sure I will get 90% negative votes because...
Oh, from your constituency?
Yes. That's why when the results came out, I was asking, was West Central part of the sample size?
And it was not.
It wasn't, because it's predominantly against LGBT issues. And they are very religious. Either they are Catholic or they are Muslims, and they are heavily against LGBT. And they often will call me and say, "Don't joke with this, make sure the thing comes," and all that and all that. And if you see the radio stations, it's all about standing against it strongly. So, but it's information to us, and it will help Upper West to begin to examine, like you are saying, why are there an outlay? Why are the issues discussed contrary to the overall perception in many other places? And perhaps you ask a question, whether the question was not properly put, or they imagined that by saying so, it meant that they should go ahead and pass it. It could be anything.
Richard Ayaba, would you like to come in on this question?
Yeah, certainly. You see, so but my presentation comes purely from a standpoint of a researcher, and I appreciate research very much. Just my senior should know, I appreciate research, and I appreciate Musa Dankwa for what he does, except that there's more to it than meet the eye. And I know my brother, Honorable Pelpo, knows about it, but he can't talk about it. You see, the question to do with the Upper West data points to you what I'm talking about. Now, if Musa can give us the specific measure that returned that data, I'll tell you why. In data collection and in training enumerators, you must ensure that in translating the question or the particular measure to respondent, there is consistency and you agree on the standard question translation. What you just see there is that people didn't understand the question. The question, perhaps translated by individual enumerators, became a leading question, gave them a certain impression to make it so they agree with the enumerator. The perception he talks about that people in public would want to say the truth, but in private it means different. It is a function of the measure, how it is translated. So in my hometown in Ketu South, when you ask people whatever the measure is on this particular matter or the direction of the country, how do you translate that in Ketu South, in Ewe? How do you translate that in Wala, in Upper West? How do you translate that in Ga Adangbe? Is there a standardized translation of that question? So if you don't do that, and then you get to a point where individual enumerators are translating the survey measure in the respective languages, the way they understand it, you get this kinds of result. So if I tell you, oh, madam, I hope you can speak Chi, Ghana, Ekoye. If on that day, okay, I have concerns about anything, that question is the same thing that is asked in English, but in English you understand it different. But if you ask somebody Ghana Ekoyiana, if on the day, if at the moment, the way you emphasize the translation in the language, I would give you an indication that may not be scientific in terms of collecting the true feeling of the person. And most of the measures that is on the questionnaire also do not give the respondents opportunity to share. Why do you think the country is not going in the right direction? That will give you an indication exactly what the person means. To also just check the validity of the first question. So there's a question of validity which measures the accuracy of the response. There's a question also about reliability, which measures the consistency of the result. And my submission to you is that if you give this data set, or sorry, this instrument, the questionnaires that Musa Dankwa uses, and you give it to me to go and replicate that survey, I will bring you a whole different report because of how you would approach it, how you explain to people when you go, the direction of the country means this. In Gadagbani, in Ewe, is standardized. So you know that the measure is recording exactly what you intend for it to measure, and that measurement is reliable. Musa understand what I'm saying, and the Upper West data is evidence to the fact that there is poor data collection practice, which is at the heart of this. So most of the returns actually suffer from that. And I tell you honestly, I'm not discrediting the thing he has done just because I am, but in terms of research, and as a researcher, I find these to be problems. And that's why I think that this data cannot be taken at face value. And Honorable, you say that I should apologize for questioning Global Info Analytics, but somehow you were comfortable to discredit the World Economics Index because that you don't like that. And so we need to be very clear that we are consistent in appreciating the issues. I told you why I appreciated that, because I think that the research practice may be more rigorous than I know about Musa Dankwa, but you choose to like this, but then condemn the other one. So there's no difference between your position and mine, but I respect the work that is being done. I just have difficulty with the science that is returning the data.
Fair enough. Before we pass the question back to Honorable Dr. Pelpour, Musa Dankwa did make it clear that the questions were very simply put. So let's press him on those two issues that you raised specifically, the one of LGBTQ and the one of which direction the country is taking. Musa Dankwa, can it be that the constituents are so out of step with their MPs, with what the MPs voted in Parliament, that there'd be so much divergence?
You know, if you look at the national outlook, only 59% of voters support the bill.
59% of voters support the bill.
But all MPs supported the bill.
This is what is surprising me.
I mean, so are we saying that the MPs are not out of step with some of the constituents?
With their constituents, yes. Rather. It's a fascinating question.
So it is very important we notice that.
But can you tell us about the actual questions that you asked?
No, we asked them, do they support the decision by Parliament to approve the LGBTQ plus bill?
Okay, so you asked them, do you support the decision by Parliament to approve the LGBTQ
by then,
bill?
it had been approved, waiting for assent.
And in West Central, 72% said no.
No, there was no West Central there. It was
sorry,
Giraffa.
Upper West. In Upper West,
in Upper West was
72% said no.
We covered Giraffa.
Right, 3 constituencies in Upper
Giraffa,
West.
Sala East, or Sala West, let me check. And then I think one of the Wa East, not West Central.
Yes, 72%. And then in other constituencies like Ahafo, Ashanti, there were a few that also, was it East?
A bit high, yes. I don't have the figures right now, but
50 in the 50s.
In the 50s. Yeah, so we shouldn't brush every constituency the same brush. They have different understanding. In fact, some of the constituencies that are also not very against it is Western region. And sometimes you could understand. That's where you have a lot of whites, exposure to the white people, the people in the petroleum industry. So certain areas in Accra, certain areas are much more liberal than certain areas. So you can't say because maybe in the northern region, X must be across. No, because we have liberal understanding of the issue.
Okay.
Why do you link whites to their opinion? Because
No,
they stay there, but they never see them. Yeah.
You're talking about
Except when you go to
The Western region.
except when you go to oil mining areas, but the majority of people don't even know they exist there. So maybe you can avoid using that.
All right, maybe I'll have to correct that. But certain regions are much more liberal.
What about on the question of the direction the country's taking?
The question says that,
You said it's very
in your view, generally,
Yes.
do you believe Ghana is headed in the right direction or wrong direction? We have beaten...
In your view, do you believe Ghana is headed in the right direction or the wrong direction? That was the extent of the question.
And in fact, we don't even give them examples, because when you try to give examples, if that example is positive, they may think you want a positive response.
They'll give you the response they think you want.
Absolutely. And you give them negative example, they will give you a negative response. So in totality, everything you have seen in the country today, do you believe that where we are headed is the right direction or wrong direction? We don't give examples. And we see we have several training every time we are going to the poll in languages, those in Ewe. So we discuss some of the things that are very controversial in terms of understanding, to ensure that people understand the issues in a very simple way. What we do is a closed-ended survey. If we are about to do maybe an open-ended survey, those are different surveys you do. Here, the responses are given to you to choose from. And these responses are normally summarized or obtained after we've done focus group discussion to see which answers are more likely to come up as answers before we transfer them into the polls. So we don't give people chance in this type of survey to explain to us what they mean by A, B, C, D. We have given you the heads up. We have given you the methodology. We have given you the sample sizes for every area we went to. If you want to replicate that with further open-ended questions, it's up to you to go and do that. We are giving you a lot of data you can use to proceed on verifying or confirming what we have done. So if you look at it, basically, we give people like enough data to replicate the survey that we have done.
Okay. Mr. Ahadba, would you like to respond to everything that Musa has just said?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you very much. I don't know how many languages Musa Dankwah can speak. I know he's an Akan and a Chim. Yeah, so I want him to just do an exercise for us. But before that, I just want to make the point that, you know, Upper West is predominant, is a religious region, mostly Christian, Catholics, okay? I think it has one of the lowest Muslim population in the North, generally. Honorable can correct me if I'm wrong. And so the position of LGBTQ is something that has religious connotation or a religious undercurrent. So I find it difficult if it is clearly explained to an individual for him to want to hold back his natural tendencies to answer a question. It's a question that is controversial, one that the person is not sure what their position is. Then that you can see that a respondent may vacillate. But questions emanating from someone's value, respondent will always give you a clear response. So I'm saying that the problem there may be data collection, and we need to be clear about it. And the question too about if we want to do qualitative research and so we can ask open-ended questions, that's not the point. As a researcher, you should be concerned about reliability of your data, that when other researchers, because that's why in the research community, we criticize each other. So your work is subject to serious criticism. And my brother, I think he knows that. Honorable knows that because he's an academics. You understand that. So you don't leave any room for people to question your scientific work. So the idea that he says it's up to us if we want to replicate, that should be his preoccupation, that everything I am doing, I want to ensure that if another researcher takes this instrument and go to the field, he will return the same data. So the burden is on him to ensure. And I want him to tell us how he will translate this question, the one about the direction of the country. Say, would you say things in this country, this is the question, would you say things in this country today are generally headed in the right direction or wrong direction? Very ambiguous, not specific. So how do you load? Right. How do you load all of this on an individual in my hometown to tell you about the direction of the country? And he should tell us how he will translate this question in Akan so that the person listening and the person translating in another place would have a standardized translation, which is key in data collection and research. So for me, I'm not just criticizing him because I dislike him or I don't like the returns, but the science is what I am questioning. And I think they need to do a better job on how they are collecting this data so we can be confident in it. My lack of confidence is not because I don't like him. It's because I'm a researcher and I want to be confident in what he's putting out so that if I am advising my government, I'll say like, this research is credible, the processes I believe in, and so therefore work with the data and make the necessary adjustments so that we can improve conditions for the people. As a researcher, when I see data, where I go to is how that data was generated. And so anytime Musa brings anything, I go to how it was generated. And if I have questions with that, the returns or the finding is not as important to me because the process of generating it is at the heart of the matter for me.
Musa Dankwa, are you ready to rise to that challenge? You're an Akan speaker, presumably with a deep Dankwa. Are you able to translate that question for?
I mean, for example, I go to a respondent and I say, oh, on my Ghana, Nema Kusina, Bienam, a point papa so, and I say, Bienam, that's what papa. This is a simple. See,
let's say.
That's why I said that.
Is that?
No, Richard, I didn't want this to be a discussion on the methodology because Richard has never agreed with anything you have done. But what we do is that, look, no researcher can have a perfect instrument.
There are always limitations.
There's always limitations. Generally, if you look at the questionnaire that we have designed, if you are scared to even look at it, you just look at it. Which I don't think he has ever done that. And I've shared that questionnaire with you, and we've published it openly. And in fact, we publish them ahead of time. So you have an issue with the questionnaire, you could give us a call. Oh, this person is a bit ambiguous. And indeed, we've had that experience in the past where we are from academia. We went through and we refined them. So we've been through the process of iteration and refinement for a period of time. No instrument is perfect, but we do our best to collect it. That's reliable.
Robust data.
So that is all we can say.
Honorable is a academic. Dr. Elpo, would you like to add your
the last remarks made by Richard is much more it's much more acceptable than the earlier remarks he made. Yeah, here he has pointed out specifically the reasons why he had a doubt. That if you ask this question, it has a general outlook. So an answer cannot be specific to a particular direction. So you might not get the exact thing you are looking for. That comment is much more acceptable than the generalized response he gave. But again, what I was against was not the statistics carried by the organization he mentions, but by the analysis he was doing to give the impression that Ghana is okay, they have done A, B, C, D. You know, the comments he was making thereafter were the ones I'm talking about, that if you see government agents coming in today based on a certain report to tell us we are not suffering, it's an offense to us because we directly experience what is happening in this country. But I think that the statistics we are getting from World Info is very pioneering. It's giving us fresh information about how to make judgments, not just to do so over, in a sweeping manner, but whatever results we are getting here, it shows that we can always get it scientifically. And this initiative is good enough for us that out of it, we can make conclusive remarks about what is happening around us. Right now, and for many times, Ghanaians say we are suffering. But when you ask them, why are you suffering? What, is it you or everybody else? And then another person, we are suffering. Today, we can get statistics showing that, look, this percentage of people are saying we are suffering. It shows that we really are suffering. And it can help us to make much more informed decisions.
Well, thank you very much for that. I think it's been a very rich and interesting discussion, and I really would like to thank the three of you for joining us today. When we consider that this organization, this research company, Global Info Analytics, has only been in business in Ghana, it's a Ghanaian company initiated by Musa Dankwa, has been in business only since 2019, which is quite extraordinary that so much
gone so far.
Just over 4 years, going into 5 years. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. And well, let's see what happens at the end of the year. We may invite you all back in again to review how in keeping with the results you have been today. Thank you very much, gentlemen. So let's switch the mood now with a short poetry interlude by Margaret Mamle Kuji. She's going to perform a poem called The Pretender from her collection, A Poetic Stroll.
The Pretender. He came with the face of an angel. He came like a harmless sheep. He came with words of peace, so we welcomed him. We gave him shelter and he smiled, so we thought all would be well. He was very cunning. Alone, he outwitted the whole clan. His words were sweet honey, so we followed him and ate of his words. He promised a better life, and we believed him and toiled for him. Later, with him as a head, we came to realize he was far from an angel and nothing like a sheep, as each day we toiled more than before, and those who protest get nothing out of it. This is the beginning of a route we have chosen. We know not what lies ahead.
And now I'd like to invite my co-host, Ruby Ofori, to join me for some quick impressions. Ruby, what did you think of that discussion with our guests?
Well, it was pretty predictable. I think you would expect the spokesperson for the ruling party, the New Patriotic Party, to try and break down and shed doubt on the report,
the data,
on the survey. And you'd expect the opposition representative, the NDC, to welcome this report because it really sets them on a good path as far as the coming elections are concerned. But I would also, for the NPP, I would take this as a ruling party, as an important indicator of people's perceptions of the state of the nation, if you like, and address the issues that have been raised. They could say to themselves, how about in 4 months' time, we reduce the numbers of people who believe that we're going in the right direction, in the wrong direction, to 40%. Take actions that actually win people over. That's a possibility, but it's unrealistic.
Rather than dismiss the data outright and say we're not engaging with it, we don't believe the methodology was correct. You're saying this is an opportunity for them to actually take corrective action and maybe improve their ratings, their prospects for it is possible.
Exactly, exactly.
I found the data very interesting, and I would be inclined to really engage with it and understand some of these underlying trends. We know that there is this pattern of 8 years already. That's quite well established, although Richard Ayagba was saying that you need more than, well, okay, Musa Dankwa has counted the data from 2000. I would probably have gone back to 1992. And Ayagba is saying we need a longer series than that. But it's been quite consistent. It has been absolutely consistent. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to this and whether they will take any kind of corrective action.
Yeah, it was interesting that he said, the translation of the questions into people's languages was an important factor in how they respond. And you could take that as a fair criticism.
And you didn't think that Musa Dankwa rose to the challenge by translating?
I think he did. He did.
Yeah. They are pretty rigorous to the extent that they are being quoted by Fitch, and they are being commissioned by important bodies to do research for them. So I don't think that we can take their methodology lightly. I think it's well worth engaging with this data to try and understand the trends.
The main point of this story is that finally we have an organization that is collecting data, is analyzing data in the country as opposed to an institution that's outside the country like Fitch. There are too many of these institutions outside of Africa that provide us with information, and all we do is consume. And we need more organizations like
Global Info Analytics. Yes. For 4 years' work, that's pretty impressive. So long may it continue. Thanks very much, Ruby, for those great thoughts. Well, that brings us to the end of today's show. Many thanks to you, our viewers, for joining us for today's Your Ghana, My Ghana episode on Graphic Online TV. I am Dede Amano Wilkes. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button on YouTube, and we hope to see you again next week. Goodbye.
For more news, please visit our website graphic.com.gh or follow us on Facebook at Daily Graphic and on YouTube and Twitter at GraphicGH.
Subscribe now.